Adrian, if you are finished shuttling people around,
All right. Yes.
I am ready when you are to convene the meeting.
Great. I'm ready to convene the meeting.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I have 5:03 p.m. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting for East Bay Community Energy. Today is Wednesday, March 16th. Again, it's 5:03 p.m. And we are still meeting over via teleconference pursuant to the change in the Brown Act under AB 361. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our clerk. Welcome back, Adrian Bankhead.
Thank you.
And when you're ready, please go ahead and call the roll.
Great, thank you. Alameda County. Alameda County. Albany.
Here.
Berkeley. Dublin. Dublin.
Here.
Thank you. Fremont.
Here.
Thank you. Hayward.
Present.
Thank you. Livermore.
Here.
Thank you. Newark. Oakland.
Oakland will be arriving a little bit late.
Great, thank you. Piedmont.
Here.
Pleasanton.
Here.
Thank you. Tracy. Union City. San Leandro.
Present.
Thank you. Emeryville.
Present.
And Community Advisory Committee.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Now is the time for public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the board on any EBCE related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments and on matters listed on the agenda will be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the board are customarily limited to 2 minutes per speaker and must complete an electronic speaker slip. The board chair may increase or decrease the time allotted to each speaker, and I will have the clerk go ahead and call first Speaker Tom Kelly. Tom, you'll have 2 minutes.
Great, thank you. Tom, you're unmuted now.
Thank you, Adrian. Tom Kelly, Berkeley. If you were to ask the average EBCE customer what they thought about renewable energy, they'd probably think in terms of carbon free. But that's actually not true for EBCE's Bright Choice. 75% of the power in Bright Choice, renewables in Bright Choice is carbon free, but 25% is the equivalent of system power, which has an emissions intensity associated with it. But what it appears that we do here at EBCE is we buy this renewable electricity in some other state outside of California, and then take those RECs and paper over that system power and call it renewable. In effect, we're actually greenwashing the renewable content in Bright Choice. My colleagues and I sent a letter to the board yesterday that I hope you get a chance to read, because it addresses some of the issues that Mr. Chazet brought up when we discussed this previously. PCE, Peninsula Clean Energy, for example, is cheaper than Bright Choice, is almost carbon free, and it's in it from an agency that has similar reserves to EBCE. The last thing I'd like to say is that the PCIA charge apparently has dropped significantly. I think it's time to have a discussion about that so that we can actually adjust our rates appropriately and start to give customers a break on their electricity costs. And I'd also suggest that, like other CCAs, that we tie the cost of electricity, the rates, to their actual cost to us and not in relation to PG&E's rates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speaker. Adrian, please unmute Speaker Vaughn for 2
Yes.
minutes.
Vaughn, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I've been doing a lot of reading. I'm a retired electrical engineer, and in no way, shape, or form do I know a penny's worth compared to your staff or anything like that. But I've been doing a lot of reading, and it seems that long duration storage is going to be a really big thing 5 or 10 years from now. It's necessary for completely decarbonating the climate and that type of thing. And it's becoming more of a thing for residential, and wealthier people, like living up in Woodside and stuff like that, are starting to take themselves off the grid. And there's also a new, in the latest IEEE magazine, talking about power and energy storage. They're talking about no wire access, meaning they're setting up microgrids so that, you know, there's islands around in the Azores and stuff like that that are being set up in South America and stuff like that. That someday there won't be this transmission. Everything will be a microgrid. The California Energy Commission stated the other day that it's going to cost $30 billion to provide the network necessary to charge cars and do all the renewable energy that's going to be required. It's taken BART 22 years to get 16 miles to San Jose for $4 to $9 billion. They're not going to build that network in time for us to use it, especially for those of you that are under 70. I think we need to start thinking about microgrids, and if the staff has probably looked at this and what they're planning or anything like that, but it's something that's going to happen to most of the people that are listening right now, and most of the people that are your customers. It's going to happen. So we better shape it now or start thinking about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian, please unmute Jessica Tovar for 2 minutes.
Jessica, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Welcome back, Adrian. Jessica
you.
Tovar with East Bay Power Alliance and Local Clean Energy Alliance. And I have an ask of both the board and staff. We have come across an opportunity to apply for a large amount of money that's way beyond what any of us small nonprofit organizations can handle. And the money amount is in the millions of dollars that could potentially fund community-based microgrids that our local nonprofits have pretty much been advocating for. It would enable us to be able to do solar battery storage, but even more so, maybe even do full decarbonization projects that also include the energy efficiency, electrification. And so I haven't had time yet to put it in writing. I will be sending a letter to the board and staff with this idea. I really hope that East Bay Community Energy would support us in applying for that money and actually creating a community-based from the ground up resiliency program, mostly because that is what is needed the most. That is what nonprofits are asking for. And, you know, we have moved into an era of regular power shutoffs and horrible amounts of smoke that gets blown into the communities with what we now call wildfire season, which are all mostly fires caused by faulty transmission lines. And so one of the other things that I hear a lot from community is the need also for air filtration. And so that is something that I hope that we can work together in acquiring for community-based organizations to have the access. So this is an ask for technical assistance from East Bay Community Energy. When we drum up our community choice program, we said we'd hope there'd be investments from revenues, but also investments from money that is maybe government grants or other outside money that we don't have the capacity for. Thank you very much. Clean power to the people.
Thank you, Jessica. I'll be happy to talk with you offline about your needs and the timing for any grant applications and connect you with staff. Please unmute Alita Dupree for 2 minutes, Adrian.
Yes, thank you. Alita, you're unmuted.
Thank you again, Chair Diane Martinez and members. Alita Dupree for the record, she and her. It's good to be back with you. Speak to you of the basics as a user of residential electricity. I did get to spend some time this past weekend in Emeryville and Oakland, and was thinking about using electricity. I hope that it was EBCE electricity. Thing is that when I stay in hotels, I don't know if those hotels are doing business with you. I hope they are. Maybe there's a way that I can get the answer to question from the hotel. But I've been really thinking a lot about storage, and both on a macro and a micro level. I looked at the CalISO website maybe 2 weeks ago, and about 400 million kilowatt hours have been curtailed to date, year to date. You could run BART with that. And so storage is essential, and timing is essential. But we have to ask, where are the curtailed kilowatt hours? Are they within easy reach of EBC? And when can we use them, allowing for the possibility of grid congestion? Because that's a lot of energy. And that renewable it can help us to improve our power content label. I think someday that we can run on 100% renewable. It's not going to happen tomorrow or even this year, but that should be our goal. I have 100% solar where I'm sitting right now, and I'm paying less than standard offer. So I think it is doable. It's not easy, but the work will have great reward, and I thank you.
Great, thank you. And I just want to remind everyone who's joining us via Zoom, if you need to make a public comment, use the raise hand feature in Zoom, or if you're calling in, press *9. And looking at the attendees box, seeing no further raised hands, I will just double check with our clerk to see if anyone has submitted electronic comment.
There are no electronic comments at this time.
Very good. I will now close public comment, and I want to make sure that the clerk has noted that Member Cow from Oakland has joined us.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Your presence is noted, Member Cow. Welcome. So that will move us on to the consent agenda. Colleagues, are there any questions on the consent agenda, or does anyone wish to pull any items, any corrections? And seeing none, I'm happy to take a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
Marquez, second.
Very
Sorry.
good. Thank you. We have a motion from the member from Pleasanton and a second from the member from Hayward. Seeing no hands raised for public comment, I will go ahead and ask the clerk to please call the roll on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Alameda County. Alameda County. Albany.
Yes.
Berkeley. Dublin.
Yes.
Fremont.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hayward.
Hayward, yes.
Thank you. Livermore.
Yes.
Newark. Oakland.
Aye.
Piedmont.
Yes, Jim Kavanaugh, just with the exception of item number 4 on the consent calendar, and that I wasn't in attendance at those meetings. Otherwise, I'm in agreement with the other items on the calendar.
Yes, abstain item number 4. Thank you. Pleasanton.
Aye.
Tracy. Union City. San Leandro,
Yes. Abstain from item number 4.
great, thank you. And Emeryville,
Aye.
yes, consent agenda is approved.
Very good, thank you. That will bring us to our regular agenda. And Howard, are you prepared to handle the CEO report this evening?
I am, yes.
Okay, great. Then I will keep things in order and I will cede the floor to you.
Great. CEO report, a few items that I wanted to provide a brief update on. The executive committee meeting, the February 25th executive comm meeting was canceled. The next exec comm meeting will be held on March 25th, 2022. The finance thanks, Adrian, for bringing that up. The Finance Administration and Procurement Subcommittee meeting, the February 18th and the rescheduled March 11th meetings of that subcommittee were canceled due to lack of quorum. The next FAP subcommittee meeting will be held on April 15th, 2022. The Marketing, Regulatory, and Legislative Subcommittee meeting that was last held on February 2nd, 2022. There is a bit of a typo here, just a note. The next meeting will be held not on April 6th, but will actually be held on April 1st. So that's just the one edit there. But the last February meeting, members received an update on regulatory items of interest, EBC, and a summary of key activities of marketing and account services over the next 6 months. So that was just a brief update on the various board-related meetings. The next update I wanted to provide was related to the Renewable 100 transition. We have 4 cities that have transitioned most of their customers to Renewable 100 during the month of January, and then 2 additional cities that are transitioning residential customers in March. The January transitions the cities are Albany, Dublin for residential only, Hayward, and Pleasanton. And then the upcoming March transition cities, or that we are in the middle of right now, are Berkeley and San Leandro. So the first notice for the March transition customers was mailed in early February, and the second notice is sort of ongoing at this stage. And then there's a table here that just shows the incremental opt-outs that we're seeing across those 6 cities. So the 2 columns all the way to the right are the most pertinent. You can see the percent opt-out rates, kind of range from 0.16% on the low end up to just a little over 1% on the high end, all relatively small numbers. And then you can see in the last column on the right is a percent move to / stay on Bright Choice. And you can see those numbers tend to be a bit higher, but ranging between kind of 1.7% all the way up to 11%, which I think this is a good reflection that customers are engaged and sort of informed on the transitions that they're making. And there are customers that are making some active decisions to switch to Bright Choice instead of the sort of default to Renewable 100. And then the last update I want to provide was related to generation rate changes. On this particular update is that PG&E increased generation rates to its bundled customers on March 1. And per our rate setting protocol, we're updating rates throughout this month to stay consistent with that. And so all customers should be transitioned by mid-March, and we've posted updated rate sheets on our website for reference. And that is it for the CEO report.
Thank you, Howard. Adrian, do you mind stopping share of screen? And colleagues, if you have any questions on the CEO report, happy to entertain them now. I don't see any hands raised, but I do have.
I do.
Oh, I apologize. Is that Member Cox?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I know it's a little hard with being on audio right now. I wanted to mention that at last night's Fremont City Council meeting, the council unanimously voted to switch to Renewable 100 as of last night. So this is news breaking action here. Just wanted to share it with everyone and to have that duly noted in the comments there. Thank you.
That's excellent news, Member Cox. Very, very happy to receive that. Member Eldred.
Thank you, Chair. I had a quick question for Howard. I've heard staff mention over time an interest in exploring no longer keeping our rates pegged to PG&Es, and I'm just wondering if there is discussion on that topic that's going to be coming to any of the subcommittees, or recommendation or discussion that will be coming to this body.
Hey, Howard, this is Nick. I can take that for a second. At this time, we're not expecting to bring anything imminently related to cost of service rate making. It is something that we have been exploring and trying to understand, but we don't have an imminent plan to do so.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Member Marquez.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if there was any updates, any proposed timelines on the discussion that we discussed last month in regard to engaging with the city of Stockton. Just wanted to see if there was any updates.
Yes, I can provide an update. We had an initial data set from the city of Stockton of their historic energy usage. There were some gaps in the data that they had provided. And so to be able to do a complete analysis, we needed to go back to PG&E and ask for an update to the data. I believe we got that on Friday. And so we're completing our analysis, and we will be doing some internal review and starting to share some of the results with Stockton staff. I expect that in April, we will come to the board with an informational item where we discuss what the likely implications of expansion of Stockton would be on our cost of service. And thereafter, we start to engage formally with the city of Stockton.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. And I will be taking public comment on this, but I just wanted to mention that just like Fremont, Emeryville took the vote last night, and we decided to go 100% to renewable, 100 for residential and commercial. So we're very excited to hop on that train. Member Bonanno.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just have a quick question. So with respect to Livermore's plans, I will just say this has not come to the council yet. It is a draft measure in our climate action plan, which will be coming to council in sometime in the next couple months. And my question is regarding the cycle on which a city can opt up. I was under the understanding that you could only do that twice a year. I may have not understood it correctly, that you could only do it, I think, April and October, and that we weren't going to be synced up with the April opt up. Is any of that ring a bell? I'm just trying to understand, is it something that a city can vote on and have it done in the month that it
yes,
is voted?
Council member Bonanno, yes, you're absolutely right. It is on a cycle. Now, the city, your city can take action at any time, but the change that the customers experience is on that cycle of every 6 months. So if the city makes a decision by a specific date, I think this month was sort of the cutoff for us to be able to initiate the transition in the fall. And then, if you miss this cutoff, then you have to make the decision by the fall to see an implementation occur next spring.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that clarification. That's good for me to know. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to recognize our marketing and account services.
Hi, this is Annie Henderson with EBCE. I just wanted to clarify one point that Nick just made. Next month, we will be bringing an item to the board to ask for the board's approval of the local city requests to do these default product changes. So it's up until next month. And I say that partly because I do believe there is another city that is still considering this for a certain customer segment. I also wanted to clarify that for your own municipal accounts, such as what the decision Fremont made last night, you can make that determination on your municipal accounts whenever you want, and then we implement it within 4 to 8 weeks, depending on the billing cycle. So just a quick distinction between the two. Thank you.
Yeah, what Emeryville did was we set the default rate for all residential and all commercial to fall to renewable 100. Member Cal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, because we're just having these discussions in Oakland now, there's our municipal accounts, which we could do at any time. That we could change whatever we want. There's the segments that are easily identified. There's all commercial accounts. There's all residential accounts, or all residential accounts with the exception of care and fair customers, because those are distinctly identifiable. If I'm saying something that's incorrect, please staff chime in. So far, is what I'm saying so far ways of making distinctions or categorizing?
That's right, Dan. Municipal accounts, residential accounts, commercial accounts, care fair accounts. Yes, those are all specific and clear distinctions.
Are there any other subcategories that one could use besides what we just talked about?
There are quite a few distinctions one could set. Net metered customers is another distinction. You can distinguish customers by specific rate. We generally look at commercial and residential, but there are many different commercial rates, and some of those commercial rates tend to be associated with very large customers. Some tend to be associated with small and medium customers. But
Okay.
I think the distinctions you provide are probably the clearest distinctions that are relevant for an opt-up type of decision.
Okay, and if our city staff wants to chat with somebody on your staff, the EBC staff, who would we send them to?
I would send them to Annie and Kelly.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Member Kumagai?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to also share that at our March 1st meeting, the City of Dublin decided to move forward with converting or opting in our non-residential accounts. So since everyone was bragging about all the good work they're doing, I figured I'd chime in. But I also wanted to mention that in our staff report, I found it really interesting. Our staff had done an analysis of the jurisdictions who had done the non-residential account enrollment, and there were varying levels of uptake there. So I think it's important that we work together as jurisdictions to just share best practices. And if I want to thank EBC staff for being present at the meeting to help us come to that decision. But if you could also kind of help us be to communicate those best practices across jurisdictions, so we can make sure that our non-residential account holders choose to stay in the 100% renewable energy portfolio.
Thank you, Member Kumagai. And I think the more of our agencies that choose to make the switch over for whatever sectors, the more we can invest in renewable energy and hopefully drive those costs down for everyone. Seeing no other hands with the board, I will move to the public. And Adrian, please unmute Speaker Tom Kelly for 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Tom, you're unmuted for 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's really refreshing and to hear that so many cities are now making that conversion to 100% renewable. And I hope that we'll see all cities move to that as quickly as possible. I'd like to point out that down in Southern California, the Clean Power Alliance actually enables the care and fair customers to enroll in the 100% as well without any increase over the local utilities rate. And the way they do that is that there is a slight additional charge to all the other customers that basically give the care and fair customers the opportunity to be, on the same level as everybody else. The other thing I would mention is that we need to hear more about the reduction in PCIA rates, and also in terms of delinking our rates from PG&E's rates. Central Coast Community Energy has done that recently, and we're able to save their customers. I think the rates are actually 10 to 12% cheaper than PG&E at this point. So we've got to get on that. We're making good progress with all these cities switching to 100% renewable, but let's also help them in terms of reducing the overall rates that they're paying. So thanks very much, and congratulations to those cities.
Great, thank you, Speaker. Adrienne, has anyone submitted electronic comment for the CEO report?
There are no electronic comments submitted for the CEO report.
Okay, very good. And I'll just double check. And I see one more hand in the attendees box. Please unmute Jim Lutz for 2 minutes.
Yes, Jim Lutz, you are unmuted.
Thank you. This is for a consent item, so I'm not sure that that it's appropriate for me to speak on it. But there was item 6 was a SMUD task order management and call center services related to the DAC green tariff disadvantaged, well, the disadvantaged communities green tariff added a fee of $53,000. And I was wondering what that was about, since SMUD is not in any disadvantaged community in East Bay Community Energy Territory.
All right, Speaker, that's okay. I will allow this comment, and I will, even though it's a little bit out of order, I will ask staff to answer your question. Nick or Howard, do you want to take this one?
I can take it. I think either JP.
Yeah, sure. SMUD is our data management provider, and this is a task order related to them implementing billing system changes.
Great, thank you. So that question is answered, and we can go ahead and move on. And Anna Olivia, are you ready to give your report?
I am indeed. Thank you very much.
Very good. You have the floor.
So Monday, the Community Advisory Committee met. Vice Chair Mutzenberg chaired his first meeting. It was great. He did a fantastic job. We were able to approve all the meeting minutes from October through February, so that feels like a victory. We are really happy to have Adrienne back as well. And there are still some technical issues happening, but they do appear to be getting worked out, and that was very positive. Some of the comments are on agenda items that are coming up, so I will wait until that time. The one thing that is not on this agenda that we did talk about, or at least I've received comments on, regarding stipends, and since the financial committee meetings have been canceled due to lack of quorum, I would like to talk to at least some members of that committee to give some input and feedback from the CAC's at least members' positions on that item. There was an exceptionally robust discussion. The entire meeting really was held around the local development business plan and the presentation that we'll receive tonight. So again, I'll hold comments on there. I will say that the members of the CAC intentionally opted to hold a meeting that was almost an entire hour longer than the 2 hours allotted to that discussion, because it was so productive and people were so deeply engaged in it. So thank you to everyone who was willing to stick around for that long, and deep gratitude to staff for their presentation and participation in that. And that is all.
Great, thank you, Chair Eldred. Colleagues, are there any questions for the CAC Chair on the report? Okay, seeing none. And
Chair,
yes,
I'm happy to connect with Anne to follow up on her request. So I'll be in touch with you, Anne. Thank you.
very good. Thank you so much, Member Marquez. And I'm seeing no hands raised. We can go ahead and move on. So here's the meat of the meeting, ladies and gentlemen. This is the presentation that the CAC received. And I just wanted to let staff know, if you weren't here for public comment at the beginning of the meeting, there was a question about how microgrids fit into our plan. So I hope you can just put a sentence in there if there's not one already in this presentation, just to answer that question regarding microgrids and how they fit into our overall plan. And I will cede the floor to staff to go ahead and give this presentation.
All right, thank you, Chair Martinez. Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all tonight about our activities on the local development team. We'll do a bit of a tag team tonight. I'll present the first few slides, and then the leads in each of the areas will take it on from there. We'll try to keep it to about 35 minutes so we can take time for Q&A from the board. Just also wanted to take 1 second to mention that we have a new program manager, Felice Ventura, who has just joined us, just made herself available on the video. So Felice will be taking over the resilience part of our program work from Jesse and Zach, who've been building that up to date. And Jesse and Zach are going to be exclusively focused on transportation electrification. So you will hear from both Felice and Jesse tonight, but just wanted to make that quick intro as we get going. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we're working on this year, and again, this is really kind of an update for you all about where we are. It's not a planning presentation about future activities. It's a snapshot of some of the major programs that we're working on. It's not completely inclusive of everything we're doing, but it's the major programs and some of the ideas that we're working through to deliver on these, deliver on the objectives of EBCE and the local development business plan. And one of the major ways that we're doing that is really trying to innovate on how we are delivering services to our cities and our communities through innovative models. CCAs themselves, we are an innovative model, and we want to continue that as we're thinking about programs and services that we can work with you, our cities, and our communities to deliver benefits to our residents and businesses. So as we are the central procurement agent for electricity, we also want to provide and lean into that and think about other kind of procurement agent services that we can do. So we're working with a few cities now, our first 4 cities on our solar and storage resilient critical facilities program that Felice will talk about. It is actually apropos to your request there, Chair Martinez, about resilience hubs. This is the work that we've been doing now for 3 years to build resilience in the critical facilities that are providing necessary services to our communities during outages. Now, EBCE is about to issue a solicitation for our first projects, where EBCE will be the PPA holder, basically own the asset for our cities, and do that as a centralized procurement partner for our cities. We're also looking at ways that we can deliver electric vehicle charging to the public and our municipal city fleets, again, as EBCE sitting in that centralized procurement role. So this is a new kind of delivery model that we're really excited about and continuing to expand on. We're also looking at ways that we can use our own capital, EBCE's capital, both the kind of investment capital that we have for providing rebates and incentives, and also how can we use our capital in the form of debt. So we aren't going to talk about our block power, low moderate income electrification program in detail today, because we've spent the last couple of meetings talking with you about that, but that's an example of how we can bring some of our capital, our money to the table and get other sources of money into the community to provide these services. And then lastly, we're really also now leaned in on how we can use state programs to help our frontline and most vulnerable communities. So we've now situated ourselves pretty well to bring in money from the state for customers who have arrearages and have built up debt, and can get debt forgiveness through both the CAP and the arrearage management plan, as well as how we can deliver discounts to customers living in low-income communities and on care rates. So these are some of the delivery models we're excited to talk about today. Next slide, please. So we've talked a bit, at least last year, we've talked about this and we'll continue thinking through it, but how do we bring EBCE's program dollars and to bear to get other sources of funding into the community that can create jobs and deliver benefits to our customers. So the table here on the right is a list of some of our programs, certainly not all of them, but some of the good examples of programs that we have built and are developing and are launching that are then bringing other sources of capital into the community. So the Cal EVIP program we launched this year, we put $3.5 million into that program. The California Energy Commission gave us $14.5 million. And those all go in incentives. And when those incentives go into the market, like they did this last year, then developers who want to access those incentives, and then they bring in their own capital to actually develop and operate electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So by us putting in $3.5 million, there's actually $30 to $40 million worth of capital that's coming into the community, creating jobs and investments in clean energy. You can go down the table and look at it. There's a lot of different mixes. In some cases, we actually aren't putting money in at all. Like for our energy efficiency advice letter that we just submitted, we're asking the state for $13.5 million. And similarly, when we put that money into the market, into the community, the private developers who are developing energy efficiency projects, they'll get some in-kind funding from, say, a business owner who wants to invest in energy efficiency upgrades for their property. And so there's a private capital element. So, that $13.5 million should be around $27 million worth of energy efficiency improvements that are going into our customers' buildings. So this is a pretty exciting way that we can think about how are we bringing money into the community. And then when we do put those programs in place, we're also able to put some job constraints around prevailing wage and focusing on the development of high road jobs and good jobs in our community. Next slide, please. So we're also really tracking customer participation. Taj and his team have done a great job at building Salesforce for our organization. And this really allows us to track what's happening with our customers and create a baseline of how customers are participating in our programs and which customers are participating in our programs. So our new programs are really now coming through a funnel, if you will, a web form on our website, so we can track people who are interested in our programs. And then to the extent that we're building a program that actually has stages of, say, participation and maybe even an incentive, we can track that within the system, which is really exciting. So there's also an effort going on to not only make sure that each program is set up in Salesforce, but that some of our legacy programs are migrated in and we can see and know when customers are participating in programs. It also really helps us to figure out who is participating in these programs. Are they on customers on care? Are they living in disadvantaged or low income communities? Not just that we've delivered kind of money into the community, but who is actually participating, which then relates to our next slide, please, Adrian, which is really continuing to focus on equity. So we've been developing this program portfolio and we want to continue to make sure that there's a kind of an equity through line across all of our programs. So we have some program areas. The first area we'll talk about, our Connected Communities program, which is really entirely focused on our most vulnerable customers, care customers, people who are having trouble paying their bills, customers living in disadvantaged communities. And then we also have kind of equity elements across all the other program areas. So in our energy efficiency work, we had our low income energy efficiency pilot. We also have the block power program that we are about to launch, exclusively focused on low moderate income electrification. And then, in transportation space, we've got the program that we've launched with Cali VIP, where we actually changed how the state is approaching incentives with respect to multifamily affordable housing. Not only something that's beneficial for our low moderate multifamily affordable housing customers, but also every program going forward will basically have the same benefit across the state. So we're also doing a lot of technical assistance with our multifamily affordable housing operators around transportation electrification, and kind of goes on and on. So across all of our program areas, we want to make sure that we've got kind of equity going through each of those areas, and having Salesforce up and running and able to track activities at the customer level will really help us create a baseline for which we can compare ourselves and make sure that we're meeting on our objectives. So those are some high level activities that we're working through. And next I will pass it to Samantha, who's going to talk about our Connected Communities program.
Thanks, JP. Adrian, if you could advance to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I have 3 slides. First, I'll cover some background, then highlight our ongoing initiatives, and then talk about a new program looking ahead to the current year. So here, as far as background goes, the Connected Communities program started in the design stage in 2019, when we identified that some of the highest disconnection rates in the state were in EBCE's service territory. So at that time, we observed that multiple zip codes had disconnection rates above 10%, which is high relative to PG&E's area average of just over 5%. So this program was developed pre-COVID or pre-pandemic, and has since evolved, especially to leverage other state programs and sources of funding that have come about as a result of the pandemic. If you could go to the next slide, please. So Connected Communities is geared towards working with community-based organizations to deliver benefits via state programs. The specific initiatives we were focused on over the past year include those listed here. So these are things like the disadvantaged communities and community solar green tariff programs. These provide a 20% discount to customers who live in disadvantaged communities. One thing to note is that in our public facing materials, we refer to these programs as solar discount and community solar discount. So sometimes that can get confusing internally. The second program or initiative this year was California Arrearage Payment Program. This was a statewide fund dedicated specifically to pandemic era utility debt relief. There's also the Arrearage Management Plan, which is a debt forgiveness program. And then last but not least, there's a new one, the Percentage of Income Payment Plan. This is a new program that sets a cap on total bills based on income. Some key outcomes are noted here, including we'll be providing 5 grants of $30,000 each to community-based organizations in our service area, and that's for program outreach and enrollment assistance. We currently have about 1,600 customers participating in the Disadvantaged Communities Green Tariff Program, or the Solar Discount Program. We'll launch a second procurement solicitation for the Community Solar Program later this year. And then finally, $8 million in debt relief is being delivered via the CAP program. If you could go to the next slide. So looking to the year ahead, we'll be implementing, as I mentioned, a new program called the Percentage of Income Payment Plan. This is a pilot, and it sets a cap on the total electric bill based on a customer's income level. So based on income level, a customer's total electricity bill will either be $37 or $109. The program is currently in early stages. We're awaiting regulatory approval to move forward with implementation. And I'll pass it now over to energy efficiency world, to Becky.
Thank you so very much, Sam, and you can advance the slide.
Great. So I'm very excited to announce that we have passed the one of the last hurdles in getting our official energy efficiency funding request into the California Public Utilities Commission. For some background reasons that I can go into if they are of interest, we were requested to adjust our initial filing and essentially bring our portfolio up to a total cost effectiveness ratio of 1.0. That's the portfolio TRC, the total resource cost test. Because of that change, it required us to remove our previously proposed low to moderate income electrification program, which we were seeking to build on through the CPUC funded energy efficiency program avenue. We've not totally given up on that. It's now going to have to be pursued through other regulatory means. However, we are very excited to submit a budget for $13 million overall. The program will be focused on a commercial pay for performance program. Pay for performance means that we are paying incentives on the basis of measured, verified energy efficiency savings, so it takes the guesswork out of some of the programs. We've designed the program to really have an emphasis on peak period reduction as well. That'll be through a combination of demand response and energy efficiency installations. And incentives will be paid to the installers to promote quality installation and a focus on peak reduction. It's up to the installers then to decide how they're going to sell this project to customers. So we think it's a really exciting model, and we're excited to bring the significant investment in for our commercial customers. We can move to the next slide. This program was built on some prior pilots that we have been running in the energy efficiency realm. We have been able to get the measurement results from 2 out of 3 of those pilots. The first was a low-income energy efficiency and peak management pilot. For this program, we partnered with Rising Sun, a local organization that works with youth development to install energy efficiency measures. We also partnered with an organization called Ohm Connect that offers customers an opportunity to enroll for free in their platform and receive credits or payments when they respond to signals to shift their energy use. We had about 388 customers participate in that program. We targeted the program to care customers exclusively. Our measured savings, again, using the metered energy consumption for the participating customers, showed about a 2% reduction in savings across the entire portfolio. This is especially significant considering that this is a no-cost program. So customers did not have to outlay any money whatsoever in order to receive these savings. So it was good news to see that savings result, especially during the COVID time when a lot of people were spending more time at home. The single family peak management pilot that we ran was testing whether or not we could get additional peak reductions out of projects that were already occurring. So we partnered with Bayren and the Home Plus program to implement this. The Home Plus program provides up to $5,000 for comprehensive full home retrofits. And our theory was if we provided an additional incentive, could contractors achieve more peak savings? Unfortunately, we had no measurable impact on peak in this program of the 122 projects that were enrolled. However, we don't think that's because the theory of the pilot is not good. We think that that's likely because it was a really condensed time frame to actually implement the pilot. Therefore, the contractors who were working in the program didn't have a lot of time to learn the new strategies of how you can, for example, install a programmable thermostat and schedule it before you leave the house. So we think that that's likely the biggest reason that there were no peak savings there. What we did find from that program, however, is that the measured impacts of the program were pretty much on spot of what you would expect from these Home Plus programs. So we do know that the Home Plus projects happening in Bayren are doing a good job delivering savings. And then the final pilot program is our commercial pay for performance program. Out of $350,000, we had 3 projects enroll, which was fully subscribed. We actually also generated a wait list out of this program of other customers who are interested in participation, which is good news for our forthcoming energy efficiency program. I think some of the things that we can draw away from this is that these are large projects that are a good fit for this kind of a program. And we're excited to see how we can build on that momentum moving forward. I will note that because it is a measured savings program, the results won't be available for 1 year after the installation so that we can collect a full year's worth of data and normalize it and actually draw conclusions from it. We go to the next slide. Another program that I wanted to talk about today is our Municipal Electrification Assistance Program. In the past, we had done reach code support through offering $10,000 awards to cities that passed reach codes. What we've done this year is we've expanded that program to not just include reach code support, but also more general technical assistance for an electrification project and or gap funding that could help finish a project or get it over the finish line. For reach code assistance, another new approach we're taking this year is really working to promote adoption of a regional model reach code. The objective here is to minimize the discrepancies between individual building codes from city to support implementation of that reach code among the contractor and developer community. It can be very challenging when you have to use a different building code in Albany versus the city of Berkeley. So pushing for that model reach code really helps to support that developer community and learning what it takes to do all electric buildings. We're currently planning to support at least 8 jurisdictions in the pursuit of reach codes this coming year. For technical assistance, that can be through evaluation of a specific project. A good example is the city of Hayward, who is evaluating replacing a boiler on their project with a heat pump water heater. They had a fairly complicated boiler situation there, and so we were able to bring in an individual vendor who could help support their staff and their developers as they considered how to move forward. And then for gap funding, the last thing I'll say here is that this is a really good fit. For example, if you have an incentive program that covers part but not all of the cost of the project, or in the instance of on-bill financing is restricted by certain payback periods. So this can be a source of funding to help get projects over the finish line. We can move forward. The real highlight of our conversation today is around induction. We've been working very hard on focusing on induction cooking. A big reason for this is the fact that buildings that are all electric become much more operationally efficient for bills. Like they save you more money is what I'm trying to say, when you're actually able to electrify the full building. And we had a suspicion that the connection folks have with gas cooktops was going to serve as a barrier to that full building electrification. People might be willing to switch out a water heater, which they don't have a very strong attachment to the fuel source of that water heater. But when it comes to gas stoves, we know people love their gas stoves. Whereas induction can be a really wonderful high-end alternative to gas stoves. So in the efforts to promote the switch to induction, we have a few things to talk about today. The first is our Cooktop lending program. We'll be launching this program in partnership with an organization called Actera, who's been running a similar program on the peninsula for many years. We're targeting around 200 and 250 loans in the first year. The soft launch is actually just pushed back due to a procurement issue to April 18th. That is breaking news as of this afternoon, but we're trying to hit that public launch in early May. One win on this program, an early win, is that we worked with Actera to make sure that we bought the supplies for the lending kits from a local supplier. So we'll be working with East Bay Restaurant Supply to actually purchase those kits. We hope that this not only supports our local businesses, but also helps send the signal that induction is something that people want and they should be stocking. So we're excited about that. And then this next bullet is a good segue to the next slide around leveraging this lending program to develop content for outreach, awareness, and other broader audiences. So we can go to the next slide. So one thing that we found from the induction work that we've done so far is that people respond to it. We had a series of 3 videos that we produced in partnership with Understory and Celery Design, featuring local chefs trying to promote either trying induction for the first time or speaking to their experiences working with induction. Those videos on EBCE's channels have received more than 40,000 views. That's just EBCE's channels. That's not even the partnership with Sunset. So we know that people respond to that kind of content. Because of that, we're building off of our induction lending program to offer broader outreach and engagement to try and get the messaging out. That'll include cooking classes and demonstrations. We're also considering social media campaigns and competitions. All in all, not only will this promote induction, but it'll also boost brand awareness and boost our engagement with our customers while promoting induction. Next slide, please. I think I have 2 more. Another project I'm excited to talk about is work we're doing under a grant with the California Energy Commission to explore strategic natural gas decommissioning. This grant is led by Energy and Environmental Economics, E3. We're also working in partnership with GridWorks. And the theory behind this grant is whether or not targeting zonal electrification, where you electrify an entire neighborhood at a time, can relieve the pressure to make natural gas infrastructure upgrades and therefore be more cost effective. So guys, is it more cost effective to electrify an entire neighborhood than it is to upgrade natural gas infrastructure, especially when we know that we're moving away from natural gas as a state? So the objective of this project is to develop an evaluative criteria to identify early decommissioning opportunities based on a number of criteria. It can be the status of the natural gas infrastructure, whether there are any planned upgrades. It could also be whether or not it's cost effective to do electrification in that region. This is evaluative work that is underway. A part of this grant will also be selecting 3 pilot communities and developing deployment strategies to test how you would actually go about getting that electrification done. Next slide. EBCE's role in this grant is twofold. On the one hand, we're informing that evaluative criteria based on the human perspective. What characteristics might you find in a community that would make it more or less likely to actually achieve zonal electrification? For example, is the presence of a community organizer that's super engaged and involved around these issues going to increase the probability that you'll be able to convince all of the folks in a neighborhood to actually electrify their building and give up their natural gas? Another role for EBCE in this project is to develop deployment plans. So we'll actually be developing strategies for what it would take to achieve that electrification. It's important for me to note that we do not yet have funding to do the actual work. The Energy Commission frequently funds grants like this in 2 phases. There will be a first phase around planning and a second phase around implementation. So we're hopeful. The CEC has signaled that they would like to do a second round of funding. Fingers are crossed for now. And I think that was my last slide. Pass it off to Felice.
Thank you, Becky. And we can advance to the next slide. Thanks for the wonderful intro at the beginning of the meeting. And it's great to be with you to talk about a couple of the resilience programs. I'll start out with Resilient Home. So Resilient Home is a program designed to provide solar and battery storage to our residential customers for emergency and daily use, while also delivering load reduction by discharging these batteries during the evening peak. This program, which is a partnership with Sunrun, is aiming to deliver about 2,000 solar and battery installations at single and multifamily residential sites. And in total, those 2,000 installations will deliver 5 megawatts of load reduction through 2023. This program has been going on since August of 2020, and results from the program to date include about 1,000 customer agreements signed, and that equates to 6 megawatts of solar and 2.2 megawatts of load reduction. As I mentioned, this is an ongoing program. It will continue through 2023. So we'll continue to build on this performance with additional sales through that period. Next slide, please. Okay, moving on to critical municipal facility resilience. This is a program that's designed to procure solar and battery storage on behalf of our city and county partners to provide backup power to critical facilities, which could include things such as fire stations or emergency operations centers. It's going back to one of JP's earlier slides. It's designed to utilize EBCE as a centralized procurement pathway, as well as leverage our solar industry experience to minimize costs and maximize deployment of solar and storage over our service territory. This program started out in about 2019 with a high-level feasibility assessment of over 300 critical facilities to begin to prioritize the sites. After this work was done, an RFI was then issued to the solar industry to get feedback from them on what would need to be done to ensure that enough information was included in an RFP for a cost-effective result. Based on those responses, EBC engaged engineering consultants in 2021 to develop that additional information on these sites. At the same time, the city councils of our 4 phase 1 cities passed resolutions to proceed with the engineering assessments as well as commit to our procurement process. At this point, we're at a really exciting phase where we're looking forward to our next big step in phase 1 of the program, which will be to issue an RFP for a PPA vendor in mid-2022. At the same time, we're thinking about building on this success and the process that has been developed by beginning to develop the next phase of assessments that will lead to a phase 2 procurement with a new set of cities. And that set of cities is currently TBD. I think I'll now pass it off to Jessie.
Thanks, Felice. Next slide, please. So I'm going to cover the medical baseline pilot program, which is, of course, part of the resilience program that Felice is taking over. But because this program is something that my team has been managing, we're going to see it through. So I'll just give some highlights here and then transition to our transportation electrification program work. So through this medical baseline battery backup pilot program, EBCE assessed medical baseline customer data and data from Alameda County Public Health to identify low-income medical baseline customers that may have electricity-dependent durable medical devices at their homes. And we identified the zip codes where we had the highest overlay between medical baseline customers and those electricity dependent devices, again, from Alameda County Public Health Department Empower data. And we targeted our initial outreach to those low income medical baseline customers in priority zip codes, letting them know that we had a limited number of free backup batteries available to them. There was an application process and we would verify customer eligibility as the applications came in. And I'm pleased to share that we have fully subscribed all 50 of the batteries that we purchased. This is the battery that we gave away. And the applicants were quite distributed throughout our service territory. We also in parallel launched a rebate for any medical baseline customer. They did not need to be low income. Any medical baseline customer that had a durable medical device, and we are offering a $1,000 rebate off the purchase of this same battery that you see here. And to date, we have received 30 rebate applications and paid out those incentives. And EBCE's incentive can be stacked with an incentive from PG&E as well. PG&E's rebate is contingent upon a resident being a homeowner or dwelling in a high fire threat district 2 or 3 area. EBCE's rebate is for any medical baseline customer anywhere in our service area. So we still do have about 80 incentives left, and are doing ongoing targeted outreach to medical baseline customers to let them know that that is available. Our marketing and outreach team is working on a informational video that will interview some of the battery and incentive recipients, much like the induction cooktop videos that Becky mentioned. Next slide, please. With regards to our transportation electrification program, we've been quite busy. And so I'm going to outline the strategic priority areas that the team is focused on and kind of provide a baseline as to why these are our strategic areas of focus. So with regards to light duty vehicles, we are very focused on first providing incentives for publicly available charging. And as JP mentioned, we launched that incentive program in December. I'll talk more about that in a second. We're also really focused on deploying a dense network of DC fast chargers that EBCE will own. And I have another slide on that as well. On the light duty side of things, we are also focused on helping our Joint Power Authority member communities lead by example in their own municipal fleets, and have been providing technical assistance to the cities and county, and we'll be launching a charging as a service product. And then in the medium and heavy duty space, our focus is on goods movement, and I'll talk about why that is in just a second. Just to set kind of the stage for why we're focused on what we are in the light duty space. The team has spent a lot of time analyzing data around our renter population. In our service territory, 47% of all residents are renters in multifamily housing. And we've analyzed the vintage of that housing stock. So these are multifamily buildings with 5 or more units. And what we found is that 90% of all the multifamily building stock is 50 years old or older. This means that a lot of these buildings are going to need electrical capacity upgrades to be able to integrate level 1 and or level 2 charging infrastructure where people live. And of course, that is not something that's going to happen quickly. It's certainly not quick enough to achieve the goals that the state has set with regards to adoption of zero emission vehicles by 2025 and 2030. And in turn, we need to then deploy dense networks of DC fast charging hubs near where renters live. We've also analyzed DMV registration data and found to date there's been very little uptake of EV adoption by renters. And so what you see here on the map is a mapping effort that we've completed. We call this our Multifamily Hotspot Map. And what you see is each red box is 1 square mile. And the darker the color of pink and red means the denser of the multifamily housing units within that square mile. The blue dots that you see are existing fast charging infrastructure. And the bigger the dot, the more fast chargers there are at that particular location. These fast chargers are not actually located at multifamily properties. They are located at retail commercial shopping areas and other properties nearby where these apartments are. As you can see, there are complete charging deserts for multiple square miles where thousands of people live but have zero access to charging infrastructure. So this is our focus, is filling this gap and providing that publicly available fast charging infrastructure to help our renter community transition and benefit from EVs. Next slide, please. So talking about our Cal EVIP incentive project, or otherwise known as the Alameda County Incentive Project. This is an incentive project that we partnered with the California Energy Commission on. We worked with them since 2019 to bring in investment into Alameda County in publicly available charging infrastructure. The CEC brought $14.5 million. EBCE is the sole co-funding partner, and the board of directors approved a 4-year budget of $14.5 million for EV charging infrastructure incentives and the infrastructure itself. So we allocated $3 million of that to the Cal EVIP incentive project, and then we set the rest of that budget aside for the DC fast charging infrastructure that EBCE will own, which I'll talk about on the next slide. Throughout shaping our programmatic requirements for this incentive program, we had a single thread that ran through every decision we made, which was equity. Of the total budget, that is $17.3 million. So this is the CEC's investment paired with EBCE's investment. Half of that budget had to be allocated for projects that were in our disadvantaged and low-income census tract areas. And those are what you see here on the map in blue highlight. We also showed the CEC our mapping effort from the previous slide with the multifamily hotspots. Thank you. Next slide. And we said, hey, we need to make sure that private sector DC fast charging providers are putting this infrastructure in places where we know it's needed. And so 50% of the DC fast charging budget was required to be for projects that actually went into our multifamily hotspot areas. And then we also mapped all of our affordable multifamily housing properties, which is what you see on the map here. The CEC, through all their other Cal EVIP incentive projects that have been implemented throughout the state of California, have historically enabled multifamily properties to apply for an incentive adder if the property was in a disadvantaged or low income census tract. And what we said was, well, hey, that's really inequitable because inherently affordable multifamily housing providers are providing residential support to renters who are low income. And we have a lot of affordable multifamily housing properties that are managed by developers that have portfolios of buildings that are outside of these DAC and low income areas. So what we said was, let us show you what we mean. And let's make sure that this incentive adder is applicable to any affordable multifamily housing property, regardless of whether it's in a disadvantaged or low income census tract geographic boundary. And once we showed them this data and this map, they kind of were like, wow, look at that. And they opened that up, and moving forward, they will be opening that up to all incentive programs throughout the state of California. So we're really happy that this analysis that we did helped really move the needle with the California Energy Commission. We also allocated some of our budget to providing free technical assistance to affordable multifamily housing providers to help them get ready for the incentive program. And this consisted of actually hiring a consultant team who conducted EV charging infrastructure assessments at about 55 properties throughout our service territory, and then a concierge service to actually help them apply for the incentives. As was noted earlier, our program launched December 1st, and our DC fast charging budget oversubscribed in less than 4 minutes by almost $30 million. And we still have about $3 million left in level 2 incentives, which we are marketing to workplaces and multifamily properties. Next slide, please. I'll describe what our plans are with regards to deploying these direct current fast charging hubs that EBCE will own. These are this is charging infrastructure where a driver can fully charge in 30 to 40 minutes. And we'll be siting these in our multifamily hotspots. And what we're really looking to do is replicate the gas station model, where there are a lot of charging ports in a single location, and there's a lot of turnover and utilization of the infrastructure itself. Each of our charging hubs will have a standard design of a minimum of 10 dual port fast chargers at each site. So this is about 22 dedicated parking spaces. And our goal is to deploy 40 to 50 of these fast charging hubs throughout our service territory by 2030. We know exactly how many DC fast charging ports the state of California has modeled are necessary in our service area to achieve the state's zero emission vehicle goals and charging infrastructure goals. And so this aligns with that. The site hosts that we are coordinating with are our Joint Power Authority member communities, and really leveraging municipal parking lots and garages, and identifying those sites that are in our multifamily hotspots. So what you see here is an image of a project down in Southern California. It's very similar to what we're trying to achieve. And then the map that you see below is actually the San Leandro main library, where the city of San Leandro has allocated 25 to 27 parking spaces for EBCE to deploy a hub. And what you can see in this map is the red triangles are multifamily properties around the San Leandro main library. And we have the ability to identify then other driver amenities like restaurants and cafes, parks and stores and shopping, medical buildings nearby these sites so that we can make sure that the site is in a multifamily hotspot and adjacent to driver amenities. To date, we've funded our projects with external grants. We've been really good about getting grant dollars and pairing that with our board of director approved budget. But to scale this infrastructure, we're really going to be moving to a public-public partnership with the cities and really looking at a revenue sharing model with the cities where we can kind of scale the capital that we need to deploy this many fast charging hubs. EBCE, because we are, a procurement agency, will have the ability to provide discounted charging to customers. And we will book and claim the LCFS credits. That's part of the revenue sharing model with the cities who are serving as site hosts to EBCE's assets. And all revenue that comes through the operation of these fast charging hubs will go into more development of other projects. And you can see here some of our phase 1 projects that are underway and some of our phase 2 projects that are in the works. Next slide, please. With regards to municipal fleets, this is another light duty area that we're leading on. We have board approved budget to provide free technical assistance in the form of fleet electrification assessments and plans for each of our JPA member cities. And you can see on the right there which plans have been completed, which are underway, and which are set to be started. This fully looks at a fleet's inventory, looks at the procurement schedule of the vehicles, the use case of the vehicles, makes recommendations on applicable alternative zero emission vehicles to meet the use case of the current internal combustion engine vehicle, does a total cost of ownership, matches the charging infrastructure that's necessary for those vehicles, and provides us with an overall fleet transition plan. This informs EBCE on where the charging infrastructure is necessary across different municipal facility locations. And what we are developing now is a charging as a service product whereby EBCE would assume the upfront cost of deploying the infrastructure for municipal fleet vehicles and then having a repayment schedule from the cities that they can pay back to us so that they can really focus, your cities can focus your budgets on the procurement of the vehicles. And then in your annual budgeting cycle, be able to budget a palatable repayment for the charging infrastructure over a long period of time. And so we're meeting one-on-one with the cities to discuss what that looks like. And we'll likely put this into practice with the city of Berkeley first at their corporation yard. Next slide. And this is my last slide. With regards to medium and heavy duty vehicles, we are very much focused on goods movement. The transit agencies have plans on how to transition their fleets per the requirements of the state and the Innovative Clean Transit Rule. So we are not involved in that. Similarly with school districts, we're here to help them when they're ready, but they have very kind of clear plans. And we know a number of the school districts have initiatives underway to start integrating zero emission buses into their fleets. But we also do have, our support if somebody needs it. Our focus on goods movement specifically is because by all accounts, EBCE's service territory is one of the most strategic trade locations in the United States. In addition to having the Port of Oakland and Oakland International Airport, which are both gateways for imports and exports, We also have all the major freight corridors in our service territory leading out to Tracy and connecting to I-5 and other state markets. And what we mean by kind of medium and heavy duty is class 3 through 6 medium duty vehicles. These are your kind of first last mile box trucks and step vans that are all diesel powered, regional delivery vans and box trucks, but also class 7 and 8, kind of the bigger trucks, also are engaged in regional delivery and drayage. And drayage trucks are the trucks that have a footprint at the port. And then there's, of course, class 7 and 8 long haul. And so our goal is to really become a first mover market for class 3 through 6 or medium duty zero emission goods movement by 2030, and all class 7 and 8 goods movement by 2045. And to do this, we have a number of efforts underway. We have a grant from the California Energy Commission to develop a blueprint for how this transition is going to happen by 2030 and 2045, respectively. We have a pilot project underway where we have assessed DMV registration data for this ecosystem and have started to offer fleet electrification assessment technical assistance to targeted fleets, and also provide a concierge service to help them apply for incentives. For both the blueprint and the pilot, CalSTART is under contract with EBCE to provide support. By all accounts, CalSTART is kind of the national, international leading think tank around medium and heavy duty goods movement. And they also implement both of the state of California's incentive programs for these vehicles. And then we have a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency that's looking at brownfields throughout our service territory with the lens of potential redevelopment of those sites for common fast charging yards for goods movement vehicles. Charging infrastructure for these trucks takes a lot of land area, a lot of real estate. And so there could be opportunities there to develop those properties into that use case. And this is the first time that US EPA has ever awarded a project like ours in the United States, where the lens is looking at redevelopment for fast charging infrastructure. And then we are partnering with PG&E on a pilot program that has not yet launched. It's still awaiting CPUC approval for vehicle to grid integration. PG&E will be testing a number of components to really set up what this marketplace could look like in the future, but they will be leveraging all of our medium and heavy duty goods movement work and our connections to the stakeholders that we're engaging through each of these efforts. And the last thing that I'll say here is that in medium and heavy duty goods movement, our lens is really everything outside of the port. We are engaged in the port and freight subcommittees that the Air District and the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project manages. We are aware of all of the former freight plans that have been developed by varying regional and local agencies. And the blueprint is intended to fill the gaps on zero emission vehicles in those plans and to achieve the action items and strategies that have been established through, for example, the AB 617 planning process in West Oakland. We have two other AB 617 areas in our service territory, East Oakland and the Tri-Valley. And this is something that's really important because we need to take a comprehensive lens to medium and heavy duty goods movement, because the vehicles are not domiciled at the port. They're domiciled outside of the port, and they're not primarily domiciled in the Oakland area. They're really domiciled everywhere. And while they might have a footprint at the port or travel through the Oakland, West Oakland area, they're coming from other places. And so we need to ensure that we're addressing all the needs of this ecosystem so that we can actually deliver the biggest localized benefit possible to our most vulnerable communities. And that includes looking at where we need to put charging infrastructure in the Tri-Valley area and up and over the Altamont so that those truck drivers have the infrastructure that's necessary to get them from the Central Valley and back into the inner parts of our service area. And I'll stop there.
All right, and thank you, Jesse, and everybody. That concludes our presentation.
Great, thank you, JP, so much great information. Colleagues, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to take public comment first. So I will check in with Adrian to see if anyone has submitted electronic comment on this item.
Yes, we have several. We do not have written comments, but we do have people with their hands raised.
Very good. So I'm happy to take folks in order of speaker cards first and then the remaining raised hands after. So Adrian, I'll leave it to you to call people in order.
Great. Alita Dupree, you are unmuted for 2 minutes.
Thank you again, Chair Diane Martinez. Alita Dupree, for the record, she and her. There's a lot of good work in here, definitely relevant to me as an ordinary user of residential electricity. It's quite a meaty presentation, pun intended. I just made a New York strip steak in my broiler of my electric range. So the induction, this is really good. I believe in cooking better electrically, and not just because you don't have the emissions and you don't have as much heat. But I think food tastes better when you cook it with electricity. That's my opinion. I'll put my steak up against any steakhouse, I think. And the transportation, that's really important, especially the buses. I don't have a car, so I use the buses to get around the area and BART. And definitely with the freight, I get things delivered, whether it be mail or groceries or packages. Those things all affect me. And especially with the high cost of petroleum now, $5-6 a gallon of gas, the case is becoming better every day for us to have electrically powered vehicles. The batteries are getting better. This is all coming together, and certainly a focus on equity is essential. The multifamily focus, because I've never owned my own real estate. I don't even own that electric range that I have. It belongs to the landlord, but I do own the iPad, which is charged by solar power. So a lot of good work in this meaty presentation. Definitely worth it. I hope it gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Vaughn, you are unmuted for 2 minutes.
Okay, I actually have a couple of questions. With respect to paying for the low-income folks to have solar, is it legal for you to put more power on the roof than they actually use? Maybe they don't have to pay back all of it, just what they use type of thing, but is it legal and is it worth it? Have you evaluated that to take full value from the roof, since once you get up there, how many panels you put on it shouldn't matter that much? The other thing with when you're doing a strategic natural gas decommissioning, any way you could combine that with strategic where to put large batteries so that the neighborhoods could be microgrid type of thing, something to consider in the future. And also charging cars is wonderful if you're doing it during the day when there's lots of solar energy that's being not being used and being dumped. I think there's kind of a problem here with targeting where the people live, because then they're going to charge at night when there's no extra solar. It would be better to target places where low-income people are employed so they can charge their electric cars during the day, because that's where they're parking. I don't know if that's went into your consideration. It sounds like you have a pretty thorough analysis. So I suspect you did that, but those are my questions. Thank you.
Steph, attempt to answer those questions before we move on. The first question was regarding solar.
Sure. So I think for the low income solar program, our solar discount and community solar discount, those are central station kind of larger systems where the solar energy is then given to a discount to the customer. In our resilient home program, which also has a low income focus, net metering rules are fairly specific about the amount of solar you can put on a roof. You can slightly oversize the solar system compared to the load if the customer has planned new electrical load, but it's pretty much restricted to the annual usage. In Alameda County, in a lot of cases, we're roof constrained. Like there's not a lot of extra roof, frankly, for in many cases. With natural gas decommissioning is a very early stage. So we're definitely looking at areas where the gas system needs upgrades, or areas where there is reasons to turn off the gas system and electrify. So we're not overlapping that with batteries at this point in time. And car charging during the day, that's a good point. It's one of the reasons that we are focused on DC fast chargers as opposed to level 2 chargers that are slower and have much larger domiciling times. That the level 2 charger is the type of charger that someone just plugs in and plugs overnight for. The fast chargers that we have can charge vehicles in 25 to 35 minutes. And so the incentive to charge during the day will probably mostly be coming through the form of lower cost electricity during the day to provide pricing signals, so that people can get lower cost fuel and charge during the day when generation is cheapest and cleanest.
Very good. Thank you. Adrian, please continue calling in order.
Great. Thank you. Jim Lutz, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Jesse, this is very impressive. I was wondering, and it sounds sort of, but maybe not, is EBCE exploring any vehicle to grid opportunities beyond the medium to heavy duty goods movement? And that's, using the batteries for load management and actually controlling the batteries with the driver's permission, of course. So that's a question.
Thank you for your question. JP, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, we are part of the PG&E VGI pilot, and there's medium and heavy duty there. The ability for light duty vehicles to discharge into the grid is really, it's not widely available. Certainly new vehicles that are coming out are starting to provide that. But we're just getting going with VGI, and V2G is still a bit further out there. VGI being controlling the battery, vehicle to grid is actually putting electricity from the car's battery into the grid. And Jesse, I'm sure, has more.
Oh, I'll just add on with regards to actually controlling the chargers themselves. We will have load management at the EV charging assets that we own and operate. But with regards to VGI as an umbrella for vehicle to grid and or vehicle to building, that's an emerging market. And so each of the investor-owned utilities has been directed to implement varying VGI pilots. And those VGI pilot areas were identified through a vehicle grid integration working group, which we were a part of for a 2-year period of time. And the VGI working group, which was a statewide multi-agency effort, identified the priority VGI pilots that need to be developed and then piloted so that we can really understand what the market metrics are and incentives are that need to be implemented to enable that kind of two-way conversation between the utilities, electricity providers, the grid, and drivers of EVs. So it's all emerging and underway, and we're closely following it.
Great, thank you, Jesse. Adrian, we have one more speaker.
Yes, Jessica Tovar. Jessica Tovar, you are recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Jessica Tovar on behalf of East Bay Clean Power Alliance. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. There are several good programs coming out of the local development business plan and the team. Obviously, our interest is reaching very low income renters, etc., environmental justice frontline community members to receive the benefits from the local development business plan. I certainly would want to see some kind of like evaluation of these programs. And I know that's been talked about at the CAC. Other things, that are concerning for us is having continuation of the Community Innovation Grant Program, which should be part of the local development business plan every year, which is grant money for nonprofits in the EBCE territory. We launched the program back in 2019 and it was never offered then again. And that should be part of the local development business plan. And it is a very critical program. It is a way for EBCE to partner with nonprofit organizations and support them with grant money that would fund their innovation projects, education, whatever it may be. You've heard in the past from like Rising Sun Center, which is a workforce development organization. I believe People Powered Solar also spoke into receiving that grant. And there are several other organizations who are recipients. And we would like to see that program continue. You know, I can't help but notice that there's a lot of investment in local sports teams and that kind of thing. We should also be supporting community innovation and not letting that fall off the local development business plan budget. So I would like to see that program being reinstated. Thank you. Clean power to the people.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Seeing no more hands raised, we will go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion on the presentation. I will first recognize Chair Anna Olivia Eldred from the CAC.
The input from the Community Advisory Committee as opposed to asking a direct question yet. Again, we want to thank staff for a really thorough presentation and bringing out some of the things this evening that the CAC had specifically commented on, and for just really talking with us in such a thorough fashion. There are several items that came up that folks wanted to see addressed. Some of these I do see in there, but these specifically included renter protections, EV leasing options, medium and heavy duty goods movement, direct input from communities being reached, and resilience hubs. Also, there is regular and ongoing support for the community innovation grants. And so we just really like to echo the importance of this partnership with our community. And that is the end of the direct CAC comments.
Thank you. Member Kumagai.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation. It's just amazing to see all of the great work that's going back into our communities because of the CCA. I wanted to highlight and really encourage the work that we're doing around electric chargers because vehicle chargers, particularly those fast chargers. You know, I'm one of those people. I live in a older multifamily development where I cannot put in my own level 2 charger, and I drive an EV, right? So it's always this this hunting and pecking to try to find the luckily I work at a place that has charging stations, so I get most of my charging done there. But those fast chargers are like the missing piece that allow me to drive an EV, because there's times when I cannot get a full charge at work, and I need to take a longer trip. So what I would encourage, I saw there was mention in there about public-public partnership. I think that's great. I would encourage us to look at public-private partnerships as well, because I know from my own experience that those fast chargers are draws for EV drivers into businesses, right? So if we think about, of course, there's businesses like Whole Foods that they don't need help, right? But there are probably businesses or economic areas, city centers, where the small businesses would really appreciate having fast chargers located there to help draw in people who are driving EVs. And I know for me, when I'm planning out my fast charging, I think, well, I need to charge for 30 minutes to get my charge. I'm going to go stop in and pick up a couple groceries, grab a cup of coffee, or do it in conjunction with lunch somewhere. So, I mean, just thinking about how we can do that. I know also many of the car manufacturers are doing charging plans for people who buy EVs. So if we can figure out ways to get on with those charging plans and realize some kind of partnership, that would be, we could probably bring some of that revenue into our coffers as well. Those are my thoughts on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Kumagai. Member Marquez.
First of all, my dog is very entertained with this body because he never sits still, and he's right here. He has not moved. So you guys are doing a great job. But no, I just want to thank the entire staffing groups. It's just very impressive to hear all of the amazing work that has been done, and thank this board for pushing the policy direction and seeing the results that we have so early on. So I'm just wondering if there's any way, do we do like an annual report or infographics, any kind of way to kind of condense the information to get it out to the public? Because it's extremely valuable and I would just love to see it shared out. So that's one suggestion. And then I know we've talked about the innovation grants in the past, but if you could just please readdress that, where we're at with that commitment and bringing that back. Thank you.
That's working.
Go ahead, JP. Did you want to answer?
Yeah. Hey, Nick, I'll jump in quick and then
No,
I was just going to say.
Let me. I'm not done with my point though. Let me finish. I was going to speak to the community innovation grants as well. So I think that's a great point with infographics. So let us take that back and think about the right cadence, but I think we will absolutely do something. I think with regards to the community innovation grants, look, this is something that obviously has been coming up meeting after meeting. And our interpretation and our sort of implementation in this fiscal year has been to allocate the incremental $250,000 that was directed by the board at our June 2021 meeting towards the low and moderate income electrification incentives. So that has always been, I think from our perspective at staff, the clear direction that we got to deliver incentives to drive innovative clean energy solutions to support low and moderate income residents. The Community Innovation Grant Program, which is a program we ran for 1 year, which was a program to provide direct grants to community-based organizations focusing on working in the climate space, is something that perhaps we may want to revisit going into next year. But this year we've been very focused on community grants, focused on supporting our low-income customers. So these are grants to groups like Spectrum, helping to engage with low-income customers who are having challenges paying their bills. I'll also note that while providing grants, especially larger grants, is obviously really beneficial to community-based organizations, it's a significant resource commitment from staff. And so when we think about prioritizing where we want to provide grants, the direction we feel that we've gotten from the board has very much been, let's focus on partnering with community-based organizations, helping to solve the challenges that our consumers are having paying their bills. We have also, though, provided workforce development grants. We provided a $50,000 grant to the Rising Sun Center. Gosh, I believe it was last year. So, you know, workforce grants are certainly part of it. I think there's just a bit of a, maybe we're talking past each other a little bit when we talk about the community innovation grant and what that specifically means. Going to this next fiscal year, certainly there's a conversation to be had about what kinds of grants we want to provide. But we have absolutely consistently provided grants to dozens of community-based organizations focused on housing, health, outreach to low-income communities for supporting the, paying their bills and accessing programs to support that. So I just want to sort of reiterate that point. I know it's something that we've made before, but I think it's just important to continue to highlight that our engagement with our community-based organizations has been robust as ever.
Okay, thank you for that. I do think there is an ongoing conversation that is needed, but I do appreciate that insight. And I know many of us will be in contact just to kind of follow up on next steps, just to try to get to some of the concerns that have been raised. But I do appreciate all the work you've done. It is obvious that we are investing in low-income communities. So thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Marquez. Board, are there any other questions or comments? I too would just like to share my gratitude to staff for sharing the breadth and depth of the programs that we're running. It certainly seems like we're not afraid to go out there and try our best in so many areas. And I just want to highlight a couple of things, possibly because I've become very better acquainted with the transportation electrification work because I had to give a presentation on it to another group. But just want to highlight a couple of things that Jesse had said. The work from EBCE actually convinced the CEC to expand their definition of who's going to be able to take advantage of the incentive adders to low-income housing that is outside of the state definitions of disadvantaged communities and low-income communities. And so the work that's happening at East Bay Community Energy is broadly affecting people in California outside of our territory. And I think that's really amazing. And I just want to also second some comments by Member Kumagai that DC fast charging is so important to get in front of the wave of electric vehicles that our automakers have already committed to producing. So if any of you were watching the Super Bowl, you might have caught the 7 commercials for EVs that aired nationally. And, you know, as I said, these automakers have made these commitments, and with our geopolitical conditions right now and the price of gas, a lot of people are looking toward electric vehicles as a solution. And we're really at a make or break point where cutting off energy from the Russian Empire to some folks means opening up untapped markets in the US. So drill, drill, drill. Or we're at a pivot point where we can say decarbonize, decarbonize, decarbonize. And that's the side that we're on. And I'm really proud to be on this team. I see more hands raised for comments and questions. I'd like to recognize Member Simon from San Leandro.
Thank you. Very good presentation, very informative. I do have a few questions. My first question is on the EBCE DC fast charge hubs and the locations that were listed in phase 1 and phase 2. And I understand these are focused on areas with multifamily hotspots or multifamily housing. Oakland, I see, Livermore, I see, but Piedmont, I'm just curious how Piedmont's on that list for multifamily low income type of usage.
JP, do you want me to take that?
Yeah, go for it, Jesse.
Sure. The city of Piedmont had approached us late in 2019 to see if there could be a pilot associated with charging infrastructure on streetlight poles. And so we worked with our PG&E colleagues across multiple departments of PG&E to determine the feasibility of that type of a pilot in their service territory, meaning their transmission and distribution service territory. This effort was almost a year worth of coordination to see if that would work and to identify curbside opportunities for level 2 charging infrastructure connected to the streetlights. In the end, PG&E deemed that streetlight charging in their entire service territory is not feasible at this time. And because we had worked so closely with the city of Piedmont for so long, we pivoted this curbside pilot to a DC fast charging curbside pilot. So they will have somewhere between 2 and 4 DC fast chargers. And within a 2-mile radius of the site, there are thousands of multi-unit apartment buildings. Sorry, there are hundreds of multifamily buildings with lots of units in the surrounding Grand Lake area of Oakland. And so the DC fast chargers are intended not only to serve visitors coming to Piedmont, but really the multifamily hotspot that particular site is within. And it's also going to enable EBCE to get some experience with curbside charging, which is extremely challenging. There are a lot of challenges with putting fast charging infrastructure or even level 2 charging infrastructure in the public right away. And so this will give us that experience. But that particular project is kind of a one-off for us because 1, it's smaller than our standardized design for the DC fast charging hubs. And 2, because it's kind of a legacy project that we had been working with the city on that we pivoted direction in.
I think it's also important to note that the city of Piedmont had a pretty meaningful grant that they were able to bring to bear. So there have been instances for this sort of first set of projects that are quite opportunistic. If there are specific grants that we are able to win, or better yet, that the city has access to that they bring us into, that provides a rationale to pursue some of these early projects.
And the funding that Nick's referring to is called TFCA dollars that's allocated to all the cities through the Alameda County Transportation Commission, and EBCE applied for that money for that project. We have a grant for the Oakland City Center West Garage project from the Air District. And in Livermore, that project is solely funded by our EBCE board approved budget. There is no grant money associated with that project.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned housing from Oakland potentially would go into Piedmont to use these chargers. Are you going to be tracking that data as these are implemented to see if that's actually happening?
Sure. Yeah, we will be conducting direct outreach to those multifamily properties within the square mile radius that we determine. We could go anywhere from 2 to 5 miles and conducting that direct outreach to multifamily property owners to ask them to help us get the word out that those are available. We also know through some of the data analysis that we've done that a lot of the drivers who actually are operating on transportation network platforms, Uber and Lyft platforms, are renters, that their trips are originating from these multifamily hotspots. So along that kind of Grand Lakeshore area, those are Uber and Lyft pickup drop-off hotspots. So we anticipate that drivers operating on the TNC platforms will be utilizing this charging infrastructure as well. And they are renters who need that access to charging infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. And another question would be the trucks that you were talking about, electrification of the goods movement segment. So remind me, you said you're not focusing on the large tractor trailers coming out of Port of Oakland? You are not focusing on that?
Oh, we absolutely are.
Well, you are.
Yeah, but our primary focus, because the Port of Oakland is served by its own municipal utility, and part of the Port of Oakland is served by EBCE. So we're coordinating with the port on identifying where could we put charging infrastructure at the port itself, where EBCE serves the electrical load. But other parts of the port are served by a different load serving entity. My point was that if we only focused on charging infrastructure at the Port of Oakland and not the entirety of our service territory, we wouldn't solve for the problem or actually enable this ecosystem to transition to zero emission vehicles. Because there are thousands of medium and heavy duty trucks that never even have a footprint at the port. And so we need to make sure that we are looking at the entirety of our service area to understand where these trucks are going and where they need charging infrastructure if they're not able to actually charge at home base, which so many fleets and independent operators actually are not able to do. And we know that even among the drayage truck community, which are the trucks that have the footprint at the port, those are independent operators who maybe lease or own 1 or 2 trucks, and they actually take their trucks home with them, so they don't have anywhere to charge. So we need to be looking comprehensively at our entire service area to understand where to put charging infrastructure so that we can help all the stakeholders, those with a footprint at the port and those without, to have access to the charging infrastructure that they need to be able to conduct business.
Okay, and follow-up last question would be related to the trucks out of the port. I'm just looking at the 880 corridor and how all trucks are funneled through 880 corridor. Trucks are currently not allowed on 580. Curious if you're looking at the potential study in the future, looking at, why are trucks banned from 580 and the whole social justice implication there. And if that were to change, are you going to be considering or looking at supplying trucks on 580 if they're electrified?
Yeah, Councilmember Simon, I think we are going to be very focused on the movement of transportation that occurs and that may occur. I think that is really a set of policy decisions that is outside of our scope. If indeed that is something that were to occur, we are happy to work with local governments and transportation companies to support the building of the infrastructure along those transportation corridors.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Member Simon. Chair Eldred.
Thank you. That was fabulous. And I had some questions regarding some of the equity factors that you had touched on. Outside of this body, I was fortunate enough to serve on the Oakland City Council Equitable Climate Action Planning group. And we were really lucky that the City of Oakland funded a community outreach and equity organization to make sure that we were getting input from impacted communities. And one of the biggest issues that they brought up, and really consistently across the board, was the issue of potential gentrification with electric vehicle charging stations, and how the strong feeling in the community was that when we put electric vehicle charging stations into areas, what we're doing is preparing a place for other folks to move in and kick out the people who live there. And because it's been the experience when road improvements come, when new, even new public transportation comes, the existing communities are displaced and forced farther and farther out. So I'm wondering what issues or what steps we're looking at in this partnership with our cities as we're looking at where to put this infrastructure, what kind of renter protections are going to be put into place, what discussions are happening to make sure that our investments in in bettering our communities, how it could have some unintended consequences, but they are foreseeable consequences that we could take steps to avoid. So I'm just wondering what staff is looking at in those conversations, if those ideas have been addressed. And I have one other, but I'd love to hear if that's being talked about.
So I would say in general, that has not been an area of focus. I think rather we very much are focused on building charging infrastructure to support our low and moderate income customers. If we think about the timelines to build these stations, we're talking about work starting today to really start building at scale in 2023, really 2024. If you think about vehicle availability, whether it's new or used vehicles, we're seeing a sea change in the vehicles that are going to be out there, both new and used. And then also, if you think about your TNC drivers, increasingly moving by regulatory mandate towards electric vehicles. So our view is that this is necessary infrastructure to support the communities, the folks that live in these communities today. And when it comes to things like renter protections, that's really something that is in the purview of the city. That we are not a housing agency, we're not a land use agency in that sense. So I think we're partnered closely with the cities and really relying on the cities to sort of point out, locations where they may or may not want us to build this infrastructure, but it's really going to leverage the work the city's done, the relationships the cities have in communities to do that.
Okay, that does make sense. I guess then I would like to stress to my fellow board members that the neighborhood coalitions that were built, like they actually set up teams where each neighborhood had a captain from that neighborhood who went around and knocked on doors and recruited dozens of other members from their neighborhoods to actually get together and talk through this. It was a process that took like 1.5 years, and we got real feedback, penetration into communities that we don't normally hear from in language run by neighbors with these delegates that came from those neighborhoods. It was a phenomenal process. And really consistently we heard, how do we fight it? How can we keep them from coming here? This will cause me to lose my home. So while it is not this thing, when those conversations come, because I agree with Nick, it is absolutely necessary infrastructure, I would just encourage you to have those conversations in your cities to look at what kind of protections and support that you could provide to your communities. And it's 7:09, so that'll be all for me.
Thank you, Chair Eldred. Member Cox.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's comments. One of the things I think is this is just such a wonderful program, being able to include equity in the lens of doing business and offering things. Who could not relate to cooking and cooking food for the soul and getting the proper tools to be able to have healthy meals in a healthy environment as we reduce the carbon emissions. I think it's wonderful. I think there's a little bit of something for everyone. I just want to proceed with caution right now, as we have seen prices going up. I mean, hey, I'm in Fremont. We're home of Tesla. It just went up by 34%. The lowest model, the Model 3, and it was 34% more than what we paid 3 years ago. And I'm a little concerned in terms of, I know we have such wonderful programs we're launching. I think the timing in some parts could be a little bit off because of the supply chain impact that all of us have talked about. And with the ongoing of things that have changed in Ukraine versus Russia. And I think that maybe doing a little bit first, doing a little pilot and just seeing first how things go, and maybe put our energies through the 3 things that may have the most community impact and benefit for those that are so deserving in our community, and then wrapping our hands around the others, because I'm seeing a lot of price movement, not just because of a car, but also all the accessories. I know firsthand and studying a lot of this information that there is, even with the charging stations, all these prices have moved up, and they're adding surcharges onto every single piece of procurement that is tied in with electrification. And, you know, it's centering around the semiconductor chip shortage and the truck driver shortage that we've all alluded to as well and talked about, and even just the whole logistics and even steel, the raw materials are even hard to get in supply. I think it's a very aggressive program that we're doing, and I think it's I applaud you for the vision and setting aside to how to take and build that equity lens. But I think in some cases, you know, just as we implement some of this, that we take a little bit smaller steps. It's just that the market and the timing is a little bit off, and how things are being indicated right now, I'm just proceeding with caution. I do want to support the program, but let's just keep in mind some of these market conditions that are hitting us right now as we want to launch something as wonderful as this for the community. So I just wanted to applaud everyone and the hard work. I'm excited. May make me a better cook at this, quote unquote. But at the same time, you know, it starts to have everyone think about how we can conserve on switching to something of a hybrid or something more electrical to have the better benefit of everyone having some sort of environmental justice, but also serving the people that are not able to make these type of choices at this time. But we're supporting all. And so I appreciate everyone's effort.
Thank you, Member Cox. I think we all could use your expertise when we're making really big purchases. Appreciate your comments. I just wanted to mention as it pertains to DC fast charging, I happen to serve on the board of Veloz through my work here as chair at EBCE, and Veloz is a nonprofit dedicated to educating folks on the electric vehicles and the future of electric vehicles. And one of the things that came up recently at our last board meeting was the importance of really supporting all of those low-income folks in those same neighborhoods that we're plotting to put these DC fast chargers, with incentives, rebates, and how complicated it is. I know I went through the EV purchase process, and I consider myself to be a computer literate person, but it really can be a difficult web to navigate to put together all of the incentives and rebates that one would want to take advantage of as an EV driver. So my point is that, you know, in my role in Veloz, I'm trying to steer everyone to getting those incentives. They call them on the hood. So you go to the dealership and let the dealership deal with getting the rebates, the coupons, and the incentive, because that is how you drive not those first adopters, but everyone else who's going to come along and scoop up all those vehicles from the, you know, the big automakers that are coming down the line. So, you know, while we do have supply chain issues now and for the foreseeable future, I think we're building out for those users who, you know, 1, 2, 3 years down the road are going to be able to join that revolution. And I think it's great. It's a great time to do that planning and build the infrastructure so that when people, when the cars are available from the dealerships and we line up how to really take care of those incentives for people, which, you know, I should say that our federal government has signaled that that's what they want as well, that those are the populations that they want to support joining that green revolution. You know, line that up with what our state, you know, through their specific definitions of their low income and disadvantaged communities. I think EBCE is very specifically poised to bring everyone together and convene them. And then we're on the ground with the customers and with all of these great electeds here in this room. We're all with our boots on the ground and we know what's going on. And I think it's we're really providing these turnkey solutions for all of the funding, all the infrastructure dollars that are really intended to get DC fast charging and other kinds of charging into the ground per the plans of our state and our federal government. So I understand your hesitation, but I think we're hopefully going to outrun these supply chain issues and be building a strong, resilient California and territory where nobody's left behind in the Green Revolution. So colleagues, are there any other comments or questions on this presentation? And seeing none, we can go ahead and move on to item 13, which is board member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future board agendas. Member Cox, I see your hand is still raised, but that's probably from your comment. No worries. And seeing no other hands raised. Oh, Member Marquez from Hayward, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to share with everybody, I've really learned a lot from all of you, and I'm taking a huge leap, and I've put a down payment on an electric vehicle. So this information is timely, and just want to share with all of the members and the public. I know how important all of us electeds love people to spend money in their own city, but should you have anyone that lives in Hayward that is looking for an electric vehicle, we will be having a new Subaru dealership open up in about a month. And I have put a down payment, and I'm on the wait list for their brand new all electric, 100% electric vehicle, Solterra. So I know they're hard to come by. So I'm just putting that out there for anyone that's interested. So thank you.
Congratulations and welcome to the EV family.
I think we need to have a competition amongst all of our local dealerships to see which ones can sell the most EVs. So I think that would be a fun board competition here to have in my CEO report to see how the numbers are going.
Very good. And then I just wanted to let the board know that you might have noticed, but because it was included in the contracts entered into that was approved tonight, but I have commissioned a study by Korn Ferry to do an executive compensation study, which will be presented to, it wasn't available in time for tonight's meeting. I wanted it for the whole board, but you guys will get it. But we'll see it first at executive committee at that next meeting. And then, if we're able to do any analysis, we'll bring it back with analysis to a future board meeting, just to kind of understand where we're at. But that's all I've got, and the time is 7:19. I want to thank you all for your patience tonight. It was a very meaty presentation on our local development business plan. Again, kudos to staff. We have our hands in so many good program areas, and it's really, really great to see. We are using data like no other CCA, I think. We really are. And I think staff deserves a pat on the back. So thank you, everyone, and good night. See you next time. This meeting is adjourned at 7:20. And welcome back, Adrian Bankhead.
Thank you, everybody.